This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're broadcasting from Park City, Utah, from the Sundance Film Festival. As we continue to look at the legacy of state violence in Mexico, now through the devastating story of the Ayotzinapa 43, the 43 students who disappeared in September of 2014 after they were brutally attacked and abducted by police forces in Iguala, Mexico. They've not been seen since. More than 5 years after their disappearance, the families of the students are still fighting for justice. Their struggle, the subject of a stunning new documentary by the world-renowned Chinese artist and activist Ai Weiwei. It's called Vivos. It premiered here at Sundance. I sat down with Ai Weiwei and asked him about why he made the film about the Ayotzinapa 43.
Well, it started with I was invited for art exhibition in Mexico. I was a bit hesitated because I don't know Mexico culture that much, and so I have to find a project which can get myself involved, and also to go different layers of the society, so I can learn the culture and what Mexican is about. So by chance, I found out there's 43 students disappeared. And that bothers me a lot because I did research in China when I was in China. In Wenchuan earthquake, there's also many students disappeared. So we always think students or young people is the future of a society, and how could that happen, and what really happened to them, and what is after when people disappear, never comes back home. So I have a very strong curiosity. I think that would be a study case for me to understand Mexican culture, its past, and its current situation. That's how it get me into this filmmaking. Certainly, this is a case which is not very uncommon in Mexico. Disappearance and the violence happens every day. And very few cases has been really solved. Over 90% of the murder cases never been. They will never find justice in relating to those kind of very violent, very brutal killings.
So, in this case, though, with these 43 young students, they were going to a teacher's college, very progressive, deeply concerned about educating the poor in their country, many of them poor themselves. They disappear. Although you don't focus on exactly what's happened, it is very clear from your documentary that there was some kind of collusion between the state, the federal and local and state police, and drug gangs. Explain what you believe took place, and then we'll talk about your main emphasis, which was showing in this slow-moving but riveting documentary how it has integrated into the life of the Mayan people, the people who lost their loved ones.
First, what I have learned is Mexico is a society which have a very deep corruption in terms of judicial corruption, and also in this case, the local government and the police, and also the army, and the cartels, the crime family, they all involved. They all part of this incident. And this case involved a generous great concern because it's such a special case. It relates to students and it relates to the government. And so internationally, there's a lot of attention. And there has been effort for investigation. But of course, the investigation being stopped by the government. So nobody knows till today where those 43 students are. There's a lot of different assumptions, but none of them really have a solid base. So that makes me really wonder how could this happen in such a condition. The truth cannot even come out. And but at the same time, you realize in the world, many cases may look different, but it has similar condition because the truth never comes out. And then what I concerned is not just what happened, but what really happened is when someone never comes back home and those people still alive, and the consequence of this kind of injustice would affect the society and the culture. So that's why the film is not an investigation type of film, but rather to see the clear facts when children not come back home and who their parents are and what kind of effect when social justice is not achieved.
So you talk about the state together with these drug gangs, what's believed took place, and the United States. Can you talk about the effect of the war on drugs on the people of Mexico, the so-called war on drugs?
The so-called war on drugs, it's built the local government very powerful in terms of military and police. And also it's one of the cause of the huge corruption, because that become a money-making machine for the local government. And that's caused the corruption. The officials be connected with drug lords, and they functions as the local economy depends on so-called drug wars. And all the drugs come to the market, which is the United States. So I think in many ways, U.S. cannot say they're not responsible in what happened in Mexico.
You have both the crisis of what's happening in Mexico, the U.S.-funded Mexican military and police that crack down on the Mexican people. And then you have the wall that the U.S. is trying to build on the border. You know well what walls mean. Of course, you come from China, the Great Wall of China. If you can talk about what the significance of this wall is that President Trump tries to build on the southern border.
I think what the wall built between U.S. and Mexico is really a symbolic one. We all know the wall cannot stop the poverty and cannot stop the people's eager to have more freedom or have freedom to choose their, to survive, to choose their location. So what the war really functions is a symbolic. It's a war building in our mind and heart, and to refuse to bear responsibility, and refuse to share, and refuse to have a compassion with those immediate neighbor. And many of their poverty are caused by us. So in today, in this so-called globalization, and the U.S. or the West, it's prosper condition is very much based on explore the conditions of the undeveloped nations. The Mexican police, when they shoot those students, the gun they use is from Germany. And so many things you can immediately find traces of this rich nations profited from the property, from the people eager to make it. And this continues, and with China, with many other nations, they dump all the pollutions and all the impossible, inhuman, or no protection labor market into those nations, and at the same time, and they are not supporting the democracy in those kind of states because they know democracy will not make them so easy to be profited.
You talk about Western nations profiting from areas that are less developed. You are making both your film, you've just finished your film in Mexico, and you're now making another film in Hong Kong. Explain what has brought you back to China, to Hong Kong, to do this film about the protests there.
Hong Kong has started its protesting since last June. It's already lasting for over half a year. Every weekend, sometimes even in the weekdays, Hong Kong young people are trying to demand the freedom and to demand the Chinese government not to imply its authoritarian practice into Hong Kong. So that will be end of Hong Kong. So young people are very brave and very idealistic, almost like naive, because now gradually they become very educated. They know what kind of power they are facing, but they are so determined, nothing can let them back off. And this is a very beautiful revolution, I should say. It set a perfect example of the next generation and how they would fight with this kind of powerful state power. And but of course they have been crashed and the people are missing, the body are found in the river, they jump out of window, and brutal cover up from the police part. And the Hong Kong, basically the leader from Hong Kong is a puppet of Chinese government. And the lady, she is refused any kind of conversation or real communication. And so this fight will continuously, it will going on. There's no way to solve it. On one side is China, the very the dictatorship, and they never used to negotiating, and they don't care if the whole Hong Kong being wiped out. They still would not care. But on the other side is young people who demand a very essential living condition, which is their freedom. It's not asking for others' things. So I so much relate to my struggle, and I sent my team there from the very beginning, and we covered the whole struggle, and still going on. So we are trying to give the moral support and to save those images and to try to come out from make a film about it. Yeah.
And explain what you understand is happening in Xinjiang province now with the Uyghurs, what we understand and what we don't understand.
What we see today is Xinjiang has built huge camps for Uyghurs, and which can contain millions of Uyghurs, and that's the information we get from all kind of research or leaked papers. And but what we don't know is that policy is since 1949, communists start to get to the power. They have this hidden policy how to solve those minorities. They call it minorities, different races such as Tibetans, Uyghurs, or Inner Mongolia people. And the way they doing this is to try to send more Chinese people into those area.
You wrote a column for the New York Times called Capitalism and Culture Side. The idea of cultural differences has been used as a justification for some of humanity's worst crimes. But you say it's actually not so distant. You talk about the New York Times publishing these 400 pages of internal government documents on the rationale and techniques of this culture side, Beijing denying the existence of the camps, but it never claimed that the documents were inauthentic. It announced the trainees in its re-education centers have all graduated. What does that mean?
It's very even hard to explain. Chinese government, they never can meet the challenge when we talk about the truth or fact. They use all kind of other line or other language which would confuse the people. So at the beginning, they refused this ever even exists to have this kind of camps. Then gradually they said, yes, there's a camps, but that's just for education, to help them to get new jobs or to help them to understand some kind of harmonious society. And then they say the leaked out papers found out this is a very premeditated or designed camp to try to really make that different races disappear. Then they said, okay, that's they already graduated. Come on, how many are they? Where are they? After graduation, do you have a name, or can you really openly to let the international journalists to go in to really examine the situation? They will never do it.
What does culture side mean?
Culture side means many things. I think it means trying to destroy a culture or trying to mark a culture in different to hide the discriminate or racist act with the argument to make a control or to make they disappear.
And you talk about how culture side is converging with predatory capitalism. You say multinational corporations, including Volkswagen, Siemens, Unilever, Nestle, have factories there. Supply chains for Muji and Uniqlo depend on Xinjiang, and companies such as H&M, Esprit, and Adidas use Xinjiang cotton. We might ask, what is it about this remote place to which the emperors of old banished criminals in lieu of sending them to prison that makes it so attractive?
Yeah, that's the question. In this globalization, the capitalism developed into the maximum speed or scale, which they would never imagine in the colonial time. So I think the capitalism really built the strongest possible relations with the authoritarian society. And in today, we call it borders, or it's not real borders. If we look at what those biggest company or corporations, how would they function, then we would realize so-called China and the U.S. war on economics, or how to call trading war, which is really just it's illusion. It's not really. It's not really possible because basically China has bought so much economic,
benefit?
Not only benefit, it's very much integrated with U.S. economy, the treasury and the bank. All those things there are Chinese investment in there. So you cannot even really say we can separate.
Ai Weiwei, world-renowned Chinese artist and activist, his documentary Vivos premiered here at the Sundance Film Festival. To see our previous interview on his first documentary, go to democracynow.org. From Park City TV in Utah, I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for joining us.